Hello, I'm Esther Githo-Ewart. It's Wednesday, May 11th. This is Africa 54.
Displaced people in Nigeria learn how to identify an explosive in a bid to keep them safe for when they eventually return home. Anger in Zimbabwe over the decision by the central bank to ban the country's financial institutions from lending money to businesses and individuals. And Russia's invasion of Ukraine is raising food production concerns in countries that depend on the region's export of fertilizers. How are Ghanaian farmers coping?
Police in Somalia say several people have been killed Wednesday in an explosion which has happened at as the presidential candidates were heading into the heavily fortified airport area to address lawmakers ahead of Sunday's vote for president. Mohammed Mahmoud reports.
Early Wednesday morning, a suicide bomber killed 3 people and injured 7 at a checkpoint on your way to the main international airport here in Mogadishu. According to the police spokesperson Abdel Fattah Aden, the suicide bomber was targeting one of the army generals who is involved in the preparation of security of the election venue. Another separate attack happened in Bondere district, where a bomb was planted in a vehicle, but the number of those killed and injured have not yet been reported. The number of Al-Shabaab attacks against government officials and those involved in the preparation of the presidential poll that is going to happen on 15th of this month continues to increase as security deteriorates day by day. On Tuesday evening, regional police boss of Mogadishu, Farhan Karole, was targeted, and luckily he survived. Mohammed Mahmoud for VOA News, Mogadishu.
In Nigeria's eastern state of Taraba, at least 7 soldiers were killed and 2 others, a brigadier general and his aide, are missing after they were ambushed by gunmen while on patrol, according to 2 military sources. The attack occurred on Tuesday night when troops came under heavy fire in the village of Tati. An army source says a search and rescue operation is underway. There has been no claim of responsibility for the attack. People forced to flee their homes in northeastern Nigeria being given lessons to identify and avoid explosive devices in a bid to keep them safe when they eventually return home. David Oyo has more.
The lessons being taught in this makeshift Nigerian classroom could save lives. Displaced people living at this camp in conflict-hit Borno State are learning how to identify and avoid explosive devices. Jidai Jantiku is Community Liaison Officer with Mines Advisory Group, or MAG, which is coordinating the teachings across northeastern Nigeria.
Most of the beneficiaries in the camps in Borno, or all displaced people in Borno entirely, they are farmers. Some are firewood vendors, some are hunters. And all these people used to go to the bush and get their livelihood activities. And these bushes are placed at the battlefield during this insurgency for the past 8 years.
Borno has, for more than a decade, been the foremost outpoint of an insurgency led by militant group Boko Haram, and later its offshoot Islamic State for West Africa province. The conflict has left about 300,000 dead and millions dependent on aid, according to the United Nations. Borno's state governor has asked for camps housing thousands of internally displaced people to be shut, citing improved security and the surrender of thousands of Boko Haram fighters in recent months. Umar Sani, who has lived at a camp for 8 years with his 2 wives and 17 children, says it's not yet safe to return.
If we are to go back to our villages now, then I sincerely see it as forced eviction. The reason is that we left our villages because of conflict, and the problems are still there. MAG's contribution in this camp is that they gather us district by district and enlighten us on what to do or avoid when we eventually go back to our villages.
Humanitarian groups say most families are unwilling to return. That's especially true of northern parts of Borno, which are deemed to be unsafe and may be experiencing a new landmine crisis. But thanks to the lessons, families like Sani's will be armed with the knowledge they may need to stay alive.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Nigerian journalists on the front line of conflict reporting are receiving trauma support from a new media initiative. Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
While the world focuses its attention on Russian...
Journalist and filmmaker Bivan Magoni has documented the sectarian violence ravaging his hometown in Kaduna State in northern Nigeria since 2016. He wants his documentary to raise awareness about the killings and to hold those responsible accountable. But Magoni says years of interviewing conflict survivors are taking a toll on his emotional well-being.
I go to a place where 40 dead bodies have been buried. I go and count like 100 dead mass graves. Like I go to count graves of over 100 people being buried. Trust me, no matter how strong-willed you are, when you come back, it's going to take a toll on you. When women begin to tell you how their children were killed in their presence, when you come up across people, survivors, who's without limbs, whose hands were chopped off, their legs were cut off, and all of that.
Magoni says coverage of conflict is affecting his mood and making it hard to finish his documentary.
Trust me, if this was happening somewhere far away from home, I don't think I will have the capacity to put myself through this mental stress.
The World Health Organization estimates 1 in 4 Nigerians, some 50 million people, suffer from some form of mental illnesses, sometimes triggered by conflict or economic hardships. But access to psychological support at hospitals or with specialists is limited. That's where Nigeria's Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development comes in. Partnering with a psychological services group, the center offers support to newsrooms and free counseling to journalists experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD.
So journalists see a lot of things, but they cannot represent them on their various mediums. So they need an outlet. A number of them go through PTSD. So I'll give not an instance, for one of the organizations that we held a session for, more than half of their staff were going through PTSD.
More than 100 journalists have benefited from the program since it started in 2019. Among them is Aisha Babatunde, who covers the Boko Haram conflict for the Nigerian news website Humango.
So in the course of the program, I realized it was very important for me, where we had to go through the to point out some of the things we go through mentally, like stress. How do you react to this when you are stressed? How do you react? Are you passive, aggressive? Are you? So it was a real pointer to what exactly I was feeling.
Babatunde says her employers include periodic trauma support as part of the benefits for staff, but the Center for Journalism wants more newsrooms to welcome the initiative.
This program or this project is good to scale. I think every newsroom, if possible, should have an in-house therapist if you can.
The skills and support the program offers could help journalists like Magoni, who plans to attend a session soon. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
Zimbabwe's central bank is banning banks from loaning money to businesses and individuals. The government says the move will deal with the growing parallel currency market. Columbus Mavunga explains.
In a statement late Monday, Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe announced that all banks had been instructed to stop lending money to businesses and individuals as part of efforts to deal with the worthless currency and inflation. Zimbabwe Banks and Allied Workers Union says the decision will worsen the country's economic woes.
Lending is the biggest part of banking. They take depositors' funds and lend them to those who want to borrow and make a profit and also pay interests. So what the government has actually done is to close banking in this country. So we are supposed to be expecting job losses, massive job losses.
Tendai Biti, an opposition leader, is Zimbabwe's former finance minister. The veteran lawyer says banks can challenge the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe announcement, which he called absurd and paranoia.
But more than that, you're also affecting commerce and industry. And in a country where there's 95% unemployment, the economy is in the intensive care unit, you need money, you need capital to spare a business. But then you ban, lending.
On Tuesday, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe Governor John Mangunka refused to comment. Danford Mutashu, the president of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Retailers, says the government made a right decision.
A lot of people have just been buying and selling money and borrowing to finance the parallel market, and I think that is wrong. And overall, I think what we need is sanity in the economy. And we had to stop at some point and start afresh.
As the adage goes, only time will tell if the new measures will curtail the free collapsing Zimbabwe's dollar, reintroduced in 2019 after abandoning it 10 years earlier when it was hit by hyperinflation. It now trades around $4.50 to the US dollar. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine has raised food production concerns in countries that depend on the region's exports of fertilizers. To cope with the shortage, authorities in Ghana are urging farmers to use locally produced chicken droppings and compost instead of fertilizer. Senanu Todd reports from Abukrom, Ghana.
Cocoa farmer Grace Ayer says her plants have started fruiting and need fertilizer to ensure their growth. But Russia's invasion of Ukraine has led to a shortage and raised last year's prices up to 5 times higher.
The rains have started, and it is the right time to apply fertilizers. Time is running out on us, and we still don't have access to fertilizers from the government or even from the market. We have heard that in the past, some farmers used chicken droppings as fertilizers, and they got good yields, so we've decided to give it a try.
Russia is one of the world's top exporters of fertilizer and inputs, and the main supplier to Ghana, the world's second biggest exporter of cocoa. Record sanctions over Russia's invasion of Ukraine are making imports virtually impossible. The Ghana Cocoa Board says they expect fertilizer prices to keep going up.
So what Cocoa Board is doing presently is introducing the farmers to poultry manure as a substitute to the fertilizer which we procure on the market. And it is our belief that this will be able to ameliorate the problem or the challenge, the availability and the price issue we'll have on our industry.
The board says chicken droppings are high in nutrients and better for nature.
It is scientifically proven that the poultry manure is a good substitute for the fertilizers. And this is organic. So if you have a substitute, why wait until you are hit the hardest?
Ghana's Ministry of Agriculture says they are also easing the fertilizer shortage by building compost sites across the country.
Everywhere there is this compost site. Once that one comes on stream, and that one is basically organic fertilizer. So we are going to see how we can combine the inorganic, just small of the inorganic with the organic, and then we are good to go. And that is the way to go for us as a country.
The UN says Russia's war on Ukraine, a top global supplier of wheat, is pushing up prices and threatening food security. The International Monetary Fund says poor countries in sub-Saharan Africa still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic are being hit hardest. But Ghana's Ministry of Agriculture is confident a shift to organic fertilizers can help prevent a food crisis and might be environmentally friendly in the long run. Sana Anutod for VOA News, Ebukrom, Ghana.
Let us know what you think about Africa 54. Africa 54's new Facebook page is facebook.com/VOA Africa. Still to come in our technology report, African online shopping giant Jumia grows exponentially. We'll have a live report from Lagos, but first, Heidi Adams tells us what's on tap for Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, nearly 20 years after the alleged genocide committed in Sudan's Darfur region, the first suspect is on trial at The Hague. What does his trial mean for those who have long called for justice?
One activist told me, you know, the most important thing is giving dignity back to the victims, giving them a voice, giving them a chance to face their accuser. What they're also saying is that Bashir, Ahmed Haroun, Abdurrahim Mohammed Hussein and others who are indicted must be brought to justice for this to be a complete process.
Also, the war in Ukraine is spiking the prices of food and fuel. We'll look at 2 African countries reeling from the soaring cost of living. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
U.S. Senate Democrats plan to force a vote on Wednesday on legislation codifying women's rights to abortion nationwide, a protest gesture that is likely to fail ahead of a possible Supreme Court decision to end those protections. For the latest on this vote, I'm joined live via Skype by VOA's congressional correspondent, Catherine Gibson. Catherine, what can you tell us about this vote?
Absolutely. So it's a very important day on Capitol Hill. We heard from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who said that this is one of the most consequential votes that the U.S. Senate has taken in decades. And we know that's a really important vote because it impacts tens of millions of women here in this country. Ever since we got that very surprising news, the leak of a draft opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court showing that there's a majority of conservative U.S. Supreme Court justices who support overturning that nearly 50-year-old decision, Roe versus Wade, that gave every woman in the United States the constitutional right to an abortion. Democrats have been incredibly concerned. They're saying that this is one of the most important things they can do, even though they already know that this vote is going to fail. They need 60 votes in the U.S. Senate to even advance to debate on it, let alone hold a vote on the legislation. In just a couple of hours now, they're going to fail on that vote because every single Senate Republican has said that this law is too extreme and that abortion should be banned here in the United States.
But Catherine, what can Congress do once the Supreme Court makes its decision?
That's right. Well, in a Democratic-held U.S. Senate, because they have so few Democrats and so they're very narrowly divided, they're not going to be able to do anything. What we're already looking ahead to in this country are the midterm elections that are going to be happening in November. The entire U.S. House of Representatives and a third of the U.S. Senate is going to be up for re-election, and that's going to change who controls those bodies. It's widely expected here in the United States that Republicans will win the U.S. Senate, and Mitch McConnell, the Senate Minority Leader, has already been telling news outlets here in this country that if Republicans hold the U.S. Senate after those November elections, they're going to pursue a nationwide federal ban on abortion. Right now, because of the way the Supreme Court decision works, it goes back to the states, and about half of the U.S. states have laws on the books that will outlaw abortion. You get Republicans in there in the U.S. Senate in control, they will make sure that it is illegal across this country.
Now, Catherine, very briefly, what is the opinion of the American public in this highly divisive issue?
This is one of the most contentious issues that the U.S. has. This goes to personal freedom, personal liberty for many people, and of course reproductive rights, which can be a really intense discussion here in this country. We're seeing a shift in American public opinion since the leak of that draft Supreme Court opinion. Before it, just about 50% of the American public supported Roe versus Wade, that Supreme Court decision from the 1970s. Now we're seeing that tick up by about 3 points. So now about 53, 54% of the U.S. public are going to be very upset in the coming weeks when the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to overturn that right.
Catherine, excellent insight as always. Our thanks to VOA congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson. And here's a sneak peek into a special VOA documentary about residents in Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
C'est le quatrième pont qui passe ici. C'est à cause du quatrième pont, ils ont détruit tout ça ici.
À 4 h du matin, la police nationale se retrouve avec la gendarmerie et on leur dit de sortir, ils vont déguerpir chez elle.
La maison elle est belle, mais il y a plein de travaux qui ne sont pas encore terminés, comme la douche, le sol.
Ça peut poser d'énormes problèmes en termes de sécurité, en termes de cohésion sociale, d'avenir politique du pays.
Be sure to watch the full documentary at voanews.com/documentaries. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov visited gas-producing ally Algeria for talks on Tuesday as Europe scrambles to secure alternative energy supplies due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Algeria is a major gas supplier to Europe, providing 11% of its imports compared with 47% from Russia. Algiers abstained when the UN General Assembly overwhelmingly passed a resolution in March demanding Russia immediately withdraw from Ukraine. Anxious to consolidate its long-standing alliance with Russia, Algeria has repeatedly stressed that it lacks the capacity to meet such demand in the short term. It's time for our technology segment, and joining us now is our tech reporter, Paul Ndiho. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Esther. Jumia, dubbed the Amazon of Africa, operates in 11 countries. It started with the belief that technology has the potential to transform everyday life in Africa. Over the years, Jumia has grown enormously, employing over 4,000 people. From Lagos, Nigeria, I'm joined by Juliet Ama, Jumia's Chief Sustainability Officer, to discuss the latest developments. Hi, Juliet.
Hello, Paul, Juliet, and Ma.
Yes, I apologize about that. How are you? How are things? Can you start by maybe telling us about the report that you just launched?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. We're very excited. We just launched our 2021 report. And what it does for us is really reassure our stakeholders, our consumers, sellers, investors, employees, and communities that sustainability is aligned, totally aligned with our strategy. We don't need to make trade-offs, and making sure that we do things that work for one stakeholder against the benefits of the other stakeholder. It's totally in alignment with our strategy.
A lot of e-commerce platforms or e-commerce companies saw a bit of growth during the pandemic. What was your story like in Jumia, for example?
Well, like we reported at the time, in terms of growth, it wasn't across board in terms of the fact that not every country in Africa experienced COVID the same way. Certainly some countries where there were movement restrictions and where people could not go out, yes, there was some acceleration in those situations because people didn't have much choices. But overall, the growth has been measured and has been in line with our expectations, but not really that it was driven primarily by COVID.
As a technology company slash a logistics company, what are you doing differently to stay afloat, to make sure that you can compete with these other companies that are emerging?
I mean, one of the things when it comes to technology is remaining agile, right? So you need to invest. Of course, there are many aspects of our business that require technology. The platform requires technology, logistics, commercials, operations, everything requires technology. But in a market where technology is advancing so rapidly and changing and shifting, we need to stay agile. So you don't need to invest in a manner that locks you into the technology that could become obsolete in another 2 or 3 years. So that balance between investment and agility is very important, and that's what we're doing.
What's the impact long-term for this report that you just released?
Oh, long term, it sets the compass for us. So now we know specifically what specific actions that Jumia is doing today that have both what we call double materiality. They're good for our business and they're also good for the environment or good for our employees or other stakeholders that we have. And really, it's for us to keep doing those things, improving where we can, finding new levers where we can accelerate growth as well as also impact our stakeholders positively.
Very briefly, how can other tech companies tap into this kind of technology that you're offering?
Well, I mean, not necessarily for technology, but I can certainly speak about the report itself. I mean, we've shared it there. The report was just launched today, so everyone has access to it. You can go on Jumia website and you see a copy of the report. And then other companies can look at it and say, okay, what are some of the things that Jumia is doing that is helping protect the environment or helping to build reducing inequality across the markets where it operates. Things like pickup stations, things like how we serve consumers in rural areas and examples. So these are examples that other companies can also look at and see how they can leverage.
We've run out of time. Thank you so much, Juliet.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.
Juliet Anama is Jumia's Chief Sustainability Officer. And that's our Tech Report today. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you very much, Paul. Be sure to join Paul Ndiho every Wednesday for the latest in technology report. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our new Facebook page, facebook.com/VOA Africa. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.